Okay.
So in high school, I was on the pre-college curriculum, but I took a number of other courses because I had no idea where I was going to end up or what I really wanted to do. So I took typing. I've never regretted that. I took drafting because I thought that was something that was kind of engineering related, and I kind of liked that sort of thing. So I took drafting. As part of that job, I was recruited to run the film projector in the auditorium occasionally. That was kind of panic ridden sometimes. Uh, but while other students were taking biology and Latin and things like that, I also took the industrial arts courses. We had a semester of wood shop. I still have some things I made in wood shop. And we had a semester of metal shop too. I don't know if there's anything existing from that. But as I said, I wasn't a great student. I wasn't the man on campus or whatever. I just was getting by, and it was okay. And my parents never beat on me to get better grades or anything. And so I just did what I could do. And it came time to apply to college. And well, my sister Evelyn's first husband, William Tharp, had come to OU to get his accounting degree, and we had occasionally come down here to either to bring him here or to visit him or something. I don't remember why, but I was familiar with Athens and its streets and so on, and I never really wanted to go to a big school or an expensive school, and so I kind of aimed on coming to Athens and applied to Athens after I graduated with a degree, my diploma in Lancaster, and I told you about the money there. Uh, at that scholarship also provided me with a summer job. I didn't mention that at the Anchor Hocking laboratory where they tested glass. They filled bottles with water and put a plunger in them, and there was weights you put on it, and it would decide when the glass broke. It would break into a thing, and you could track back what part of the glass the bottle had broken first. Anyway, that's a side story.
This was in the mid 1950s. You were doing this.
Yeah, that would be 50s. Anyway, somehow or other, I got up to steam to apply to Athens. I knew I could get through that up to OU at first job, at first semester anyway, first year, and kind of had taken chemistry and physics in high school and kind of liked that. And somehow or other, the chemistry teacher had picked me to be a lab assistant. I don't know why, because I don't think I was all that superfluous or whatever. I mean, impressive academically, but when I was a senior, I was a lab assistant because the juniors were, and so the juniors were in the class, and then I was in the lab all by myself, and I got to see the stock room, and I made some copper sulfate crystals that were nice blue things that had different shapes to them. I got fascinated with the idea of these chemicals are wonderful things to deal with. I wasn't doing bad things, making explosives or anything, although I did some of that later. So I got kind of hooked on chemistry and decided I would try to be a chemistry major at Ohio University. I had no idea the high school teachers had put the fear of God in us about how tough you're going to have to learn. You better learn that now because you're going to have to know that when you get to college. Well, so on. Well, I not only did okay, I did pretty well at High U, and got that scholarship from Anchor Hocking and did better and did better. And I didn't have all A's, but I had to take things like psychology and philosophy and stuff like that.
Accounting?
That I got B's in. So I ended up with 3.66666, like an A minus kind of average. And I was elected to both Phi Beta Kappa and Phi Kappa Phi. And somehow
honorary as well.
Honorary. So somehow or other, my sister found out that I was being taken into Phi Beta Kappa, and she paid for my little key that I got
Nice.
for that.
Thank you, Evan.
So,
And you also joined ROTC.
I was in ROTC in college because the Korean War was just sort of simmering down some, but I didn't want to be drafted. The draft was still on, and people got drafted, and I was trying to hide from the draft a bit, and that was a way to condition myself to, at least for the time I was in ROTC, to not be drafted. And then I would
So you joined the Army to avoid the Army.
become an Army officer at the end of that time, and I did graduate from ROTC and became a second lieutenant, and in the Quartermaster Corps, and went through basic training and so on, and ended up being assigned, in part, I believe, because of my instructor in ROTC in Athens here. We had to give presentations, and I gave a presentation at his suggestion on how to preserve foods with the radiation, gamma rays and X-rays and things.
That was being that was being researched at the time.
That was a thing at that time. So anyway, he suggested that, and thought I did it, and don't know how it went over the class, but he was impressed enough that I believe the only way I could have got the job that I got in Chicago in a chemistry lab in Chicago was by his knowledge of me, because other people in my graduating class went to quartermaster depots, various places where they store things and pass out whatever you have to do. So I ended up on the Quartermaster Corps Food and Container Institute in the south side of Chicago. It was within smell distance of the stockyard that was active at that time.
And this was after you already finished your 4 years of undergrad. This was after you were completing your service requirement.
Yes, after 4 years at OU, I was committed to 2 years in Army service. Okay. Some of my class were in a 6-month active duty and seven and a half years of reserve work. Mm-hmm. If I did my 2 years, then I would only have 4 years or whatever, 6 years of reserve. I never had to go to any reserve. I was put on some standing group or other that was never called up to do anything. But I spent 18 months in Chicago, and during that time in Chicago was the time we were married, and she came up there in the last 6 months or year or so, and she got a job.
So let's get some years in here. Hold on a second. You graduated from Ohio University in 1957. And then you entered the Army.
Until 59.
59. So you were in Chicago. You were, for those 2 years, you were stationed in Chicago, working on this lab, this food irradiation for MREs or something. Like how to feed soldiers.
Was given a lot of opportunities to travel around to where they were doing this irradiation and so on, and so I got on airplanes and got used to seeing a lot of nice places, And I was going to say something else. Forgot what it was.
Well, you were talking about bringing her and the time you were in Chicago working on the lab, and sorry, I'll let you think about that. You can pause if you want.
I had another part of that story, but I can't remember what it was.
I should have let you go. You'll come up with it.
Anyway, I when I first went there, I lived with another guy that had space in his apartment and didn't really like him, so I moved out to the YMCA in Oak Park, Illinois. And then when she decided she would be willing to marry me at my plight up there, we got our own little room, a small apartment in a house. I forget the name of the street now, but anyway.
110 South Elmwood.
110 South Elmwood Avenue. Yeah, and it occurred to me, and I've lost it again. What I was also going to say. I think of it and then I forget it.
We live in the Y with somebody else.
Jerry Gernon, was a friend of mine. So he still lived in the Y, and we lived close on the way. So he and I would take turns driving down to. It was about a 45-minute drive. She took the train, the L, into downtown Chicago, where she could go to work in the merchandise mart. Yeah. There's something else about that I was going to say. Well, I was. That's where I learned to be a pretty good shot with a pistol. Was on the pistol team of the Quartermaster Corps, and she eventually took some lessons from another guy. There was a range in the basement of this place, a big old warehouse, and the engineer there had built this range for pistols only. So as a pistol shooter, there were a group of us that would travel to other places that had pistol teams, and we would compete against them. We also went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and built a big tent and slept over there, not in the tent, but we had a tent and so on. And we competed in the pistol matches for the 5th Army. We were in the 5th Army area around Chicago.
Because, of course, we all know the Quartermaster Corps always is involved in combat, right?
Quartermaster did not handle ammunition or guns. That was
For
the
some reason, you had to know how to shoot,
ordnance corps.
You had to know how to shoot, though.
But anyway, I got a lot of experience in firearms, and so I don't own a pistol today because if I had one, I probably wouldn't miss if I tried to shoot somebody. Anyway.
That's good. I've seen your medals. You've got medals.
I got medals. Yeah, that's right. I should throw those away too.
No, you don't. You're supposed to pin them on your chest, and wear them.
There was something else about my time there that I guess I was the range officer for a while also. Being 2nd lieutenant and so on.
So yeah, 2nd lieutenant. So you weren't in charge of a platoon of privates or anything like that?
No, I wasn't in charge of anybody but myself. I had a friend, Keith Clark, that was maybe years older than I. He'd been there a while. He'd been there as an enlisted person for a while, and then he lived in Chicago, and they hired him back as a civilian. But besides this, Jerry Gernon and Keith Clark, I worked for a lieutenant colonel, George Danold, and he was kind of a funny guy, but anyway, he and I got along okay, and he never gave me any particular assignments. He was in charge of this radiation side of things and so on.
Okay, and so you did your 2 years. At what point did you apply or know that you wanted to go to graduate school? Tell us about that.
I always had that back in my mind that I would like to do something other than being a full-time laboratory chemist and mixing things together and pot boiling and things like that. And so I thought about possibilities of where I could go to school. I got the applications from Wisconsin because Wisconsin had a pretty good record. The chemistry department was well known at that time. And I got an application from Harvard to fill out. And the Harvard one wanted you to write them a long essay about your goals in life and how what you were going to do with your degree. I could never bring myself to write that.
Didn't know yet.
Wisconsin was rather more mundane, and I did fill it out, but I don't recall that I ever mailed it. In the meantime, for whatever reason, because in my Army things, I had been sent to California, and I met up with a person out there, Dr. Richard Glass. He was involved in the radiation end of things, and he went to Berkeley and had worked for
Dave Shirley.
Seaborg.
Glenn
Seaborg, who was the originator of several of the heavy elements and so on. Can't think of his first name. Glenn Seaborg. And I got to meet him later. But anyway, I was very impressed by this guy who was now at Stanford University. He was working at Stanford, but his degree was from Berkeley. And I thought, boy, oh boy, if I could be as smart as him.
Well, because at this time, in the late 1950s, Berkeley and several other schools were involved in, like you said, that they were creating new elements.
Yeah.
They were at the forefront of nuclear chemistry and physics.
Fission and all that, was developed there,
So there were Nobel scholars working
absolutely
at Berkeley at the time.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Naive as I am, I put in my application to the chemistry department at Berkeley, having no idea how I was going to carry that off because I needed money. I couldn't afford to go there. I was an out-of-state student, for one thing, and they must have been hard up because they took me. And I had good grades, but I'd been out of school for 2 years in the Army, and I don't know if that was good or bad being in the Army, but I had no choice in that matter. They took me in. And the courses were hard, but I could keep up with it. Managed to keep my head above water. I wasn't an A+ student there at all, but they gave me a scholarship. I was a teaching assistant for a year there, just as I had been a teaching assistant at OU when I was I took freshman chemistry as a freshman. I was a teaching assistant in freshman chemistry as a sophomore, junior, and senior. And my wife came along when I was a junior and took me away.
Saved you from that.
She never could remember my name. I had to write it in her book.
I remembered it. I just couldn't spell it.
Who can?
Yeah.
It's a crazy name. I should have shortened it.
So anyway.
So then, okay, so you got the letter from Berkeley.
I got the letter accepting.
At the time you were
in
you were
Chicago.
in Chicago. Okay.
And we had to be there. I got out of the Army like September the 9th or something. And Berkeley didn't start until
59
like
now we're talking? 59?
2 weeks later, September the 9th.
Of 59?
59.
59, okay.
I went in September 9th of 59, or 57.
Right, okay.
So I graduated in June of 57, spent a year doing what?
No, 57. June of 57, you graduated OU. If you started in the Army in September of 57, you only had that summer break.
I had that summer break.
Okay.
I don't remember. After I graduated, I'd worked at Anchor Hocking on a job, but I did some other kind of work that summer and then left.
You worked at Battelle sometime.
I worked at Battelle, that's right. Battelle took me as a summer intern kind of person, along with my roommate, Jerry Thompson, that also went there. We didn't live together. He commuted back and forth from his home. But anyway.
And Battelle was in Columbus.
Battelle was in Columbus, Fifth Avenue in Columbus,
Gotcha.
yeah.
They still
So,
are, I think.
Where were we?
You got the letter from Berkeley in Chicago.
I got the letter from
1959,
Berkeley in
and you had to
Chicago,
get out to California.
and
to start school.
I got out of service on September the 9th, and I had rented a U-Haul trailer, the smallest they had, that was covered in, put everything we owned in that trailer, and hitched it to our car, invited her mother to come with us to go see her brother in Sacramento.
Because Joe McCullough was in Sacramento.
Joe McCullough was in Sacramento. Her mother took us up on that, and she was the back seat. She wasn't driving, but she was in the back seat. And we had other things stuffed in the back seat that wouldn't go in the trailer. So she came up on a train, I guess, and we picked her up in Chicago.
To Chicago. She came to Chicago on a train.
She might have stayed one night in our place, did she? I don't remember. And we packed up that trailer and said goodbye and turned the keys into the rental person and so on. And we headed west.
Do you remember what kind of car it was?
Ford, a 53 Ford. First car we had, 53 Ford. I bought it 4 years old.
You two had, okay.
Yeah. And we drove that car all around Chicago, back and forth and so on, and back to home and whatever. And it pulled that trailer over the mountains and got us to Sacramento. And we stayed at Sacramento with her uncle and so on.
Joe and Louise.
Yeah, while we could go kind of day wandering down into Berkeley to try to find a place to live. And we went down there and managed to we looked at a couple and didn't reject them. And then we did find this, what we thought was a very nice place to live. Like I say, and the rest is history.
It's all history.
I don't know where I was. Yeah.
Everything's history. Okay, so you now made it to Berkeley, and you
found an
started your
apartment.
program. So you had to start. You started taking classes.
I took classes, yeah, and they had the radiation laboratory was up on the hill, and I always had the back of my brain that I would like to be involved in that somehow, and so during the beginning of the year, you're supposed to go and interview various professors and so on, and I did talk to a few, and I didn't understand what the hell they're talking about. And went up the hill where there was a new faculty person that was doing this low temperature research, basically physics. That wasn't in chemistry, but he was a chemist anyway, David Shirley, and just kind of hung out there long enough till he decided that, well, do you want to do something? And I said, sure. And so we went, he took me in the lab and we started doing experiments, and I stayed there for that time.
It's because your field of physical chemistry is sort of halfway between physics and chemistry.
Yeah.
So you were starting out in chemistry, but you kind of went into this sort of,
it's the physical and mathematics side of chemistry, which most chemists deplored. They wanted to work with chemicals and mix pots and boiling pots and so on. They didn't want to do the math and the physics involved and why it worked that way, but they were willing to make new compounds. That's fine. Go make your new compounds.
So yours is about the physics of the atom.
Yeah, it turned out to be
neutrons, which
nuclear physics. Yeah.
Kind of led eventually to string theory and those sort of things, but that's more physics. So
yeah,
it's sort of like you get
very much.
If you
physics.
Get small enough, you end up not in chemistry anymore.
Yeah, it was called the radiation laboratory. It's very much physics. Yeah.
Physics. Yeah.
Yeah, but they had a chemistry section that dealt with making new isotopes and so on. I wasn't involved in that. But.
And how many Nobel laureates did you meet while you were at Berkeley?
I don't know because they didn't wear name tags like that.
They may not have gotten their Nobels
They
yet.
were all around. Yeah,
they may not have had their Nobels yet. They were working on the things that were going to eventually win them their Nobels. Yeah, so you were in a pretty good program.
It was a high end
yeah.
Territory, and I felt like a stranger in paradise kind of thing.
So how many years were you in your PhD program?
We took coursework for a full year, and during that time we were supposed to select what kind of research we wanted to do, interview faculty, and like I say, I did that a few times and didn't really want to do X-ray crystallography, which was an option, and didn't want to do this and so on. Finally found David Shirley, who was new faculty person, kind of developing things. He just finished his own degree, and they kept him on because he's really smart and aggressive.
And he was your dissertation advisor?
He was my dissertation advisor,
okay.
Yeah. And they were doing this low temperature physics, basically aligning nuclei in metals to make them all point in one direction and study the radiation pattern. And you could, with the physics, would let you do a lot of other, get a lot of other useful information out of that. But yeah.
And so from your dissertation, you ended up publishing 2 papers.
Yeah, my name's on 3, I think, and I don't remember. Yeah, we did one on David Shirley and I together, and he put my name on it. Did some nuclear orientation in a neodymium-147 in a neodymium crystal. I can't remember the name of it now. I've forgotten this long name on it. Had the right structure to make the neodymium behave anyway. So there was a paper on that, and then my dissertation, David wrote something about, he called it the fantasy and the fiction. I had the fiction, and he had the fantasy of what this all meant, and he put my name on the fantasy paper as well as on the fiction paper. So on my thesis, basically, was the paper generated there.
Because you had done the work that was underlying the work that he was doing.
Yeah.
That's
but
great.
he was pulling together a lot of data from other people, making it look like trying to paint the full picture of what this all meant. And I was over here, and he was looking at the whole thing, and he was good enough to put my name on that summary paper.
Okay, so you started Berkeley in 59.
59.
And you graduated from Berkeley with your PhD.
Late 63, yeah.
63.
I didn't get out in 4 years, and I had a job already lined up at OU here for the fall of 63, and I had to get in contact with the chairman and say I wasn't going to make it. I needed, I had to finish it because we had some serious instrument problems. The magnet that we were using, a big, huge magnet, somebody burned it out. And so they had to pull in another magnet and the motor for it and so on. That's where I managed to finish my degree late. So I came here the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I was on the airplane and heard it when we landed in Chicago. So you can look up that date and figure out what that date was that I finally arrived here. And your mother was living in Columbus because she was having Susan. She was living with her parents, and she came down and looked for apartments or something, didn't you?
With mother, yeah.
Yeah, with your mother to find a place for us to live.
So Mom flew from
alone.
Berkeley back to Columbus, pregnant.
Very pregnant.
Very
she couldn't
pregnant.
wait any longer.
With
They wouldn't
Susan.
take her on the airlines. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
I was surprised they let me go at 8 months.
Did they make you pay for 2 tickets?
No, yeah. So I was there alone for a while, still in our apartment. We had to give it up, and so I moved to a hotel there. And it was kind of ratty. It was cheap, but it was ratty, and might have been full of prostitutes or something. I don't know, but I didn't like it. So I found a room at the YMCA, and I had to finish doing the papers and revising the thing. I give it to my thesis advisor, David Shirley, and he would okay it or say, can you do better here? What are the numbers here? This number isn't right or something. And I was still fiddling with it and fixing and so on, and it still had to go to be approved by, I think, 3 faculty members, not just my advisor, but 2 other independent guys, and they weren't very anxious to read anything. And I know I'd give them a week, and then I'd gingerly go and knock on the door and said, did you read my thesis yet? And, well, no, I'm going to get on it. In fact, the thesis is all right to read. And one guy finally said, well, is it any good? And I said, yeah. Is it right? And I said, yeah. And I said, David Shirley was the supervisor. Okay, well, I'll sign it. He signed it. So, I think he never read it at all. So
where have I heard that?
Whatever works, yeah.
That's great.
So in that process, I put my car up for sale too, but I told him I couldn't let you have the car until I was ready to leave.
Right.
And I finally did sell the car, and one of the guys at the radiation laboratory, that was a friend of mine, picked me up in his car and delivered me and whatever I had to the airport in Alameda Airport.
Oh, not even San Francisco, but Alameda.
South of, yeah, well, I forget where it was, yeah. So,
wow.
Meanwhile, she was home having a baby that I'd never seen.
Right.
And I was flying in and seeing my brand new daughter for the first time.
Yay.
And they met us at the airport, and she had come here and bought a car, and she had a bow on it. It was wrapped up somehow out in the parking lot. And she brought Susan in to meet me in the airport, and we walked out there to the car. It was the old airport, old
Probably.
Columbus Airport, I think, and there was a car with a bow on it and so on, because she bought our first brand new car. It was what was the Chevy, wasn't it?
No, it was a.
That wasn't the Rambler?
Huh?
Rambler, maybe
Yeah.
it was the Rambler.
Was it the Rambler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the first one I remember was the Rambler.
Rambler, probably the Rambler. Yeah.
Yeah, we had it a while.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So